The old wooden toy sat exactly where Anthony had left it, perched on the shelf above his bed, staring down with its painted grin. It had always been there. A gift from his grandfather, the little cymbal-clapping monkey had watched over Anthony since childhood. Its fur was worn, its brass cymbals tarnished, and its glass eyes reflected the moonlight that streamed through the bedroom window. But lately Anthony felt uneasy. He couldn't explain it. Every night as he lay in bed, he had the strangest sensation that the monkey had moved, just slightly. A tilt of the head. A shift in posture. Nothing obvious. Nothing real. And yet, he would wake up to find it facing a different direction, its little cymbals frozen mid-motion, as if it had been caught in the act. Tonight was worse. The room was too quiet. The wind outside had stilled, the usual creaks of the house had fallen silent. Anthony turned onto his side, forcing his eyes shut. Then, clap. His body went rigid. It was faint, barely a whisper of sound. Clap. Slow. Deliberate. His breath caught in his throat as he turned toward the shelf. The monkey sat motionless. Its grin too wide, its hands too still. Anthony swallowed hard. Maybe he imagined it. Then, a small thud. He snapped upright. The monkey was no longer on the shelf. Anthony's heart pounded in his chest as he stared at the empty shelf. The monkey was gone. Swallowing hard, he reached for his bedside lamp, fumbling with the switch. Warm yellow light spilled across the room, pushing back the shadows. His eyes darted across the floor, searching. And then, there it was. The monkey sat in the middle of the room, legs splayed, cymbals just slightly apart, as if it had been stopped mid-motion. Its glassy eyes glinted in the dim light, reflecting his startled expression. Anthony's stomach twisted. It must have fallen. It had to have fallen. He exhaled sharply and climbed out of bed. The wooden floor creaked beneath his feet as he crouched down, reaching for the toy. His fingers hesitated. Something about it felt wrong. The air around him seemed thicker, heavier. The small bedroom, once familiar and safe, now carried a strange unease, like something unseen was watching from the corners. Brushing the thought aside, Anthony grabbed the monkey and set it back on the shelf. It wobbled slightly before settling into place, its grin fixed and unmoving. He climbed back into bed and pulled the blankets over himself. It was just an old toy. Nothing more. Still, he left the lamp on. Morning came slow and gray, the sky outside shrouded in thick, heavy clouds. The air smelled of impending rain, and a distant rumble of thunder rolled across the hills. Anthony sat at the kitchen table, picking at his breakfast, his thoughts still tangled in the events of the night before. "You okay?" his mother asked, pouring herself a cup of coffee. He hesitated. "Yeah, just didn't sleep well." She gave him a knowing look. "Nightmares again?" Anthony bristled. He wasn't a kid anymore. "No," he said quickly. "Just that old monkey toy. I think I should get rid of it." His mother frowned. "The one Grandpa gave you?" He nodded. She sighed. "Anthony, that toy's been in this family for years. Grandpa had it when he was a boy. It's creepy," he cut in. "It moves." His mother paused mid-sip. A flicker of something crossed her face, something distant, almost sad. Then, She shook her head. It's just your imagination. Anthony pushed his plate away, appetite gone. Yeah, he muttered. Maybe. That night, the rain came. Thunder rattled the windows. The wind howled through the trees, bending their skeletal branches against the storm-lit sky. Anthony lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The monkey sat on the shelf, just where he left it. But the air in the room felt different, charged, waiting. He turned on his side, forcing his breathing to slow. It's just a storm. Then, clap. His eyes shot open. Clap. Slow. Mechanical. Closer. Anthony stopped breathing. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room in a harsh, white glow. And for one terrible second, the monkey stood at the foot of his bed, cymbals raised, grinning, waiting. Then, darkness. The light was gone, and the monkey was not where it had been before. The storm raged outside, but Anthony barely heard it. His pulse thundered in his ears, his breath caught in his throat as he stared into the darkness. The monkey was gone. His hands gripped the blanket so tightly his fingers ached. Every inch of him screamed, "Don't move," but his mind was already racing. Did I really see it? The lightning, the silhouette at the foot of the bed, the raised cymbals. But it wasn't there now. Slowly, so slowly, Anthony reached for his bedside lamp. His fingers trembled as they found the switch. Click. The bulb flickered, then died. He sucked in a sharp breath. No. No, no, no. Shadows swallowed the room. Only the storm's brief flashes gave shape to the darkness. And then, a new sound. A soft scrape. Wood against wood. From the floor. Anthony's stomach twisted. The monkey. It was moving. He forced himself to sit up, every muscle tight with fear. The dim glow of the storm's light flickered again. And for just a second, the monkey sat in the middle of the room, facing him. His breath hitched. No, it wasn't there before. It had been on the shelf. And it had moved. By itself. Another flash of lightning. It was closer. Anthony lurched back against the headboard, panic seizing his chest. Stop it, he whispered. Just stop. The room answered in silence. He clenched his fists, forcing himself to think. It's a toy. A stupid old toy. Just pick it up. Throw it away. He took a shaky breath, swung his legs over the bed, and stood. The floor was ice cold. 1 step. 2. He could see the monkey now, right at his feet. The grin on its face seemed wider. Anthony bent down. His hand hovered over the toy, fingers twitching. And then, it moved. Its arm twitched. The cymbals shuddered apart. And before Anthony could even react, clap. The sound rang through the room, louder than it should have been, like it echoed from inside his skull. Anthony jerked backward, his heart hammering. No, that wasn't real. That wasn't real. The monkey clapped again. Clap. Anthony's breath hitched. Clap. The cymbals moved without touch. He scrambled back toward the bed, and the light cut out completely. The room was drenched in darkness. Anthony's breath came in short gasps. His legs hit the edge of the bed, but he didn't dare climb in. He wasn't alone. Something was there with him. In the dark. And then, a whisper. Not words. Not human. A slow, scraping noise, like something dragging across the floor. Anthony clamped a hand over his mouth, swallowing a whimper. The sound stopped. A heavy silence pressed in, so thick it felt alive. Then, soft, deliberate footsteps. Not human. Small, uneven. Like the movement of something that shouldn't be walking. And it was coming toward him. Anthony squeezed his eyes shut. Wake up! Wake up! A shift in the air. Something right in front of him. So close he could feel it. The cymbals brushed against his knee. He ran. Blindly, crashing into the nightstand, fumbling for the door. His fingers closed around the knob, locked. He yanked, twisting, pulling. And then, the clap. Directly behind him. The room spun as something grabbed his ankle. He hit the floor hard, the breath ripped from his lungs. The sound of clanging metal filled his ears, over and over. Clap, 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 clap. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was the monkey's grinning face. And its cymbals, raised high, as if ready to strike. Silence. A thick, heavy silence, wrapped in darkness. Anthony's body felt cold, stiff. His limbs refused to move. His head throbbed, his skin damp with sweat. He wasn't in his room anymore. Slowly, his eyes fluttered open. The dim glow of a single flickering candle illuminated the space. Brick walls surrounded him, the scent of damp stone and mildew thick in the air. A basement. He tried to sit up, but something held him down. Anthony's breath hitched. Rope. His wrists were bound. His ankles too. And in the flickering candlelight, he saw them. Toys. Hundreds of them. Old dolls with cracked porcelain faces. Stuffed animals with missing eyes. Tin monkeys, dozens of them, all staring at him with fixed grins. And at the center of the room, the monkey. The one from his shelf. Its glass eyes gleamed in the candlelight. Its cymbals rested at its sides. Waiting. Anthony's stomach tightened. His mind raced. How did I get here? How is this happening? Then, the candle flickered. A shadow moved. Not a toy. Something else. A figure stepped into the dim light. Tall. Thin. And when it spoke, its voice was his grandfather's. You shouldn't have tried to get rid of it, Anthony. A cold chill slithered down his spine. Grandpa? His voice came out as a whisper. The figure stepped closer. But it wasn't his grandfather. Not anymore. Its face was hollow, stretched, the eyes deep, sunken pits. I warned you. The voice was still Grandpa's, but warped, distorted. Anthony's heart slammed against his ribs. This isn't real. This can't be real. The figure knelt beside him, and in its hand, it held a single, rusted key. "The monkey doesn't like to be abandoned," it murmured. Anthony's breath came ragged, uneven. The monkey twitched. Its cymbals rose. Anthony struggled against the ropes, panic clawing at his throat. "Let me go," he gasped. The figure simply smiled. "You belong to it now." The monkey's arms snapped shut. Clap. The candle went out, and the darkness swallowed him whole. Darkness. A suffocating, endless void. Anthony's body felt weightless, as if he were suspended in nothingness. But he wasn't alone. He could hear it, soft clinking metal, distant at first, then growing closer. Clap. The sound echoed in the empty space. Then again. Clap. And again. Clap. 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 Anthony squeezed his eyes shut, his breath shallow. It wasn't a dream. He could feel the cold floor beneath him, smell the stale air, hear the slow, deliberate sound of tiny feet approaching. Then, a voice. Soft, familiar. "Anthony!" His eyes snapped open. His mother stood at the top of the basement stairs, her face pale, her expression twisted with horror. The light from the hallway spilled into the room, casting long shadows across the walls. She took a trembling step forward. "Oh my God," she breathed. What is this?" Anthony's lips parted, but no words came out. He couldn't speak. He couldn't move. She rushed to him, fumbling with the ropes, her hands shaking. You're okay, I've got you." As the bindings loosened, Anthony's body collapsed forward into her arms. His limbs felt like lead, his mind thick with exhaustion. She held him close, stroking his hair, whispering words of comfort. But then, she froze. A chill ran through her body. Anthony felt it too. The air shifted, and from the shadows, the monkey sat on the floor. Its cymbals raised, its grin frozen, its black eyes reflecting the dim light. Anthony and his mother stared at it. Neither of them moved. Neither of them breathed. Then, slowly, the monkey tilted its head, as if it were watching them, as if it understood. His mother's grip tightened around him. She whispered, her voice barely audible. "Don't move." The monkey didn't blink. The candlelight flickered. The house groaned, the air thick with a silence so deep it felt alive. And then, Anthony's mother blew out the candle. And they ran. Anthony never set foot in that basement again. His mother burned the monkey the very next day, watched it turn to ash. But that night, as Anthony lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart still pounding from the nightmare, he heard it. Faint, distant, somewhere in the walls. Clap. A pause. Then again. Clap. Clap. The sound of tiny cymbals. Waiting. Listening. Smiling.